Hey, Jason, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Mike, should we do rock, paper, scissors for first
I
question?
think you should
Or
go for it. I think you're
okay,
poised.
all right.
I'm scared.
Oh, everyone does great. Feel free to be as transparent or as opaque as possible. But our first question for every guest is, when is the last time you worried about making your monthly expenses?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so we launched 404 Media in November 2023 and sort of needed. I was living off of savings then. I worked at Vice for 10 years and saved a lot of money. And I would say the first 3, 4 months of that, I was living totally off of savings. And I had maybe 4 months of savings saved. So basically, toward the beginning of January 2024, was pretty worried about how things were going. We had launched this thing. Myself and 3 colleagues had launched this thing, and we knew we needed to make money right away. We knew that we needed to have a paid subscription situation from the get-go because we didn't have tons of savings. We didn't have any VC investment or anything like that. And so I was just burning cash basically. And the first few months, people were excited about what we had launched, but there weren't that many subscribers. And so, I think the first month we paid ourselves $1,000 or something like that. And then since then we've sort of had the good fortune of our publication has worked. And so I have not worried about it for about a year and a half.
Well, congratulations. Because as we were talking about before we started taping, I am so worried about the future of patron supported media that I am so happy and happy for and treasure the experiments that have worked. Right. And y'all seem like such a great example. But at the same time, there's so much precarity built into your model as well.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to put the world's biggest asterisk up, which is the company is going really well right now. Again, I had as stable of a job exists in new media, which was at Vice, which sounds crazy to say because there was constantly layoffs and that sort of thing. It felt very precarious, but I very luckily, was stably employed for 10 years, which not that many people in journalism can say. And so I feel very lucky about that. One thing that we faced toward the end of my time at Vice was we got sued for a story that we reported, which was accurate, but we got sued for defamation by a surveillance company. And it wasn't my livelihood on the line, but we got sued for $100 million. And even though the case was thrown out, we have litigation insurance. It's called defamation insurance. And we have a lawyer who reviews articles that we think, are legally not dubious because we're very buttoned up in our reporting and we know defamation laws and that sort of thing, but things that could be controversial. But that's an expense that goes above and beyond any normal day-to-day expenses, is the possibility of a lawsuit. It's you're not talking about paying your own rent. You're talking about paying an $800 an hour lawyer for potentially months at a time. And so, I mean, I think that is a really scary part of having our own company, where it's it's our names on the company versus, working for Vice, which got sued often. And it's, it's something that we think about a lot and something that we're prepared for. But I think that's on top of running a normal business, with sort of normal day-to-day expenses and sort of making ends meet in that way.
Aside from knowing you needed to be prepared for litigation coming from Motherboard, in starting this endeavor independently, what are some other things you knew you had to have in place to ensure success, even though you knew you're going to be coming into it with less resources and a more sort of scrappy attitude? But what did you know had to be in place for this to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think 5 years ago, it would have been possible to do this. Like Defector, which is, one of our colleagues, did this 5 years ago. But there was a time where you would have needed like an entire IT team. You would have needed like people who could have connected a website to like a subscription management
Mm.
situation, connect to like all that sort of thing. And now there's many ways of just spinning something up in an afternoon, for example. And I think paradoxically, like we didn't think that we needed that much to do this. There was a lot of thought that went into it, but having I consider myself like a student of like online media. Like every time a new publication launches, I like see what they're doing and I read all the articles about it and see like who's funding it and see like sort of how it goes. And I feel like there are so many publications for a while that got like a splashy story in the New York Times or Politico or wherever, and they said like our publication is coming soon, and then 6 months pass, and then they launch and they have like 3 or 4 good launch stories, and then it's like, well, what are you doing in week 2? What are you doing in week 3? What are you doing in week 4? And I think for us, we were like, every day that we are not online is money that we are just like burning. Like with that's money that we will never ever get back. And so we wanted to launch as quickly as possible. And sort of our thought was like, we want to do this as totally inexpensively as we possibly can, because we saw like one of the big reasons Vice and these publications failed was because they got really complicated and they got really big and they got really bloated, and of course they took on like tons of private equity money and debt funding and like all of that, but they also had like the world's most expensive office in Williamsburg, in
Hmm.
Venice Beach, like in all these places. And so we're like, definitely no office, like definitely no like middle managers, definitely not like every dime that we have should like go into like the journalism and hope that that kind of pays off in the end. And over time, we've realized like there were things that we needed that we did not have when we started. This is like for a very long time, we were doing all of our own social media, which is pretty easy to do if you're like one person, but we're 4 people publishing like we're trying to be on every platform. So we're like on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, and we're
Mm.
trying to be there in like a way that feels natural, and like trying to juggle that while also doing articles was getting like really complicated. And so we brought on like freelancers and contractors to kind of help us with that. We also like pay an accountant, for example. Like I was trying to do the books in QuickBooks for a minute, and like it was a nightmare. It was a complete nightmare. And it's like I consider myself to be like relatively fine, like mathematically inclined, like sort of more
Yeah.
than your average writer. And I was just like, oh my god, this is a nightmare. And so we have like outsourced a lot of sort of the business and administrative tasks to like third party companies that specialize in this. Like we have like an old colleague of ours who sells podcast ads for us. I'm not like out there like being like, please buy ads for my podcast. And I think that's pretty common, but those are things that we didn't like realize that we needed when we started, but should have.
What about what you might call like invisible costs, which is the almost emotional factor of like starting your own business, being a small company, knowing that this is kill what you eat or kill hunt what you eat. I can't remember what the exact phrase is, but that this is on you every day, right? Like it's a small
Yeah.
company.
Yeah. I mean, problems don't get solved unless we solve them. And I think it's weird because I'm like working, I would argue I'm working a little bit less than I was in the past, just because like I was running like a very complicated and big team at a company that was like constantly having layoffs, was going through a bankruptcy. Like there was all sorts of things that like kept me up at night because there were things that I could not
Mm,
control in any way. Whereas like now I work very, very hard. We all work very hard, but there's not like a mystery person coming in and being like, your entire team is fired tomorrow, or like these people that you work with, like, we decided to stop funding this, or these freelancers that you've been working with for years, suddenly there's no budget. It's like having that insight is like, it lets me sleep better at night for sure. But at the same time, it's like we do everything. Like, I mean, behind me, I have like a bunch of envelopes, like those green envelopes. Those are like t-shirt. Like I mail t-shirts to people because we
Mike.
like, I have like a little hat, and it's like I got boxes of like t-shirts and envelopes and a label maker, and it's like I spent hours over the weekend like printing out and like putting these things on envelopes, and it's like that gives me, I'm like, oh, this is cool, this is DIY, it's nice. And then like this Sunday was a really nice, like unseasonably nice weather day, but I was like really far behind on all that, and I was like, I don't want to be sticking like labels on envelopes all day, you know? And so there's like a lot of stuff like that where it's like, oh, this is cool, but like no one's gonna mail that stuff if I'm not, you know.
Yeah, the fulfillment person in me sees the fulfillment person in you. Yeah,
Thank you so much.
It's a lot.
I grew up and I was like selling stuff on eBay when I was a kid, so I was like, oh, I got really good at like going to the post office and like navigating all this stuff. So it's like, oh, I can do it. And like I was like, I volunteered, and now it's like 2 years later, I'm like, don't, maybe it's time to get some help there. Not that we're selling like that many t-shirts, but at first I was like, oh yes, it's like a very personal touch. And then you mail something and it like gets lost in the mail, or it's the wrong size or something, and I'm like, oh, I'm like an Amazon fulfillment center and like the returns processor, you know.
Lots of
That
tracking info.
That personal touch piece is interesting to me because I think that is one of the costs of starting your own independent whatever, whether it's a newsletter or a cooperatively run place, which there can be returns on that as a person, right? It's a really direct relationship. There's an intimacy to it, but there's also sometimes that costs something, right? Like you're either a nice day or just this feeling of heaviness. And I see it not just in my own work where I feel like I don't have to fulfill stuff physically, let's say, but I do have to like work on that parasocial part. But I got something, I ordered some American made filtering earplugs the other day, which were expensive, more expensive than they need to be, you know, technically, I suppose. Got great reviews, etc. I opened the package, there's like candy and a handwritten note.
Oh wow!
Oh my god, that's cute. That's above
That's
and beyond.
cute and a little bit sad to like, not sad, but also like, oh wow, like. And I also was talking to a friend of mine who said that Etsy makers tend to do this more these days. Like you don't just get the thing you ordered, you have to like, people really have to like perform this like gratitude, which on the one hand, yay, right? Like we love personal connections. On the other hand, that's a cost, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like my job, your job, our jobs have been public for a long time, no matter sort of where we've been working. Like at Vice, it was a public facing job. I did, you know, like YouTube documentaries where I would go interview scientists and thought I was doing a good job. And then the comments would be like making fun of my vocal fry or like what I was wearing or something like that. And it's a million times worse for women, for people of color, but like it's not fun. And it is happening to me from time to time. And eventually I felt like I developed some sort of like skin to just be like, whatever. And when people didn't like articles that we did at Vice, it was very easy for me to like roll my eyes and just be like, well, whatever, like you're getting it for free. Like, who cares? Don't read it. And now, I mean, I still want to have that impulse. And I think, but at the same time, it's like when we get feedback from subscribers where they're like, we didn't like that article, or I didn't like that article. It's like, well, they're like directly financially supporting that work. And it does cut like a little bit deeper. I think we've had the good fortune of people being like extraordinarily nice to us. And we're like really thankful. Like I'll perform that gratitude now. It's just like, when I'm mailing those t-shirts or like when I'm reading comments or whatever, Like I've mailed t-shirts to Japan, to Australia, to North Dakota, to Montana. And I'm like, how did you find us? Why do you want my t-shirt? Like it's so like, there's a moment where I'm like, wow, this is really cool. But it's so much different than it was at Vice, where they weren't like giving, like the readers weren't like giving me anything. They were like giving us attention, but then all of the like monetary reward and like all of that was sort of going to back to Vice, and then ultimately like private equity people and like all of that. Whereas now it's like this person is like literally giving me money and my colleagues money. And I think that it does change things a little bit. We've also had parties, like we had a party in LA, we had a party in New York, and a bunch of people came to them. And that was such an amazing moment to see, like, these people exist in real life. It's so cool that they came to this journalism talk or like this party that we had. And then there'd be a few people would be like, oh, I feel like I know you because I heard your podcast, or I know your voice from the podcast. And like, so many creators and journalists and podcasters and YouTubers like have that experience, but that was a new experience for me. And I think it was a little bit like, I was literally talking to my therapist about this like 2 days ago, being like, there's like the public persona that I put off, and there's like my internal life. And it's when it's your business, and when I feel like I'm thinking about the business like all the time, it like where that stops and where I start is like a really hard thing to sort of like figure out, I think.